Welcome to the Same Side Selling Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Altman. How do you build a culture of growth for non-salespeople? If you look at it, most organizations are filled with vast people with different levels of expertise and skills and talents. And statistically, about 10% of the organization is made up of people who have a title or role in sales. But the top performing organizations have a culture of growth where everybody in the organization is focused on how do they help customers feel more comfortable doing business with them. They all share a similar process that they follow in meetings with potential clients. And they know that everybody, whether it's someone in accounting or someone in implementing a project or the front desk, has a role in sales. So the first thing I hear from people is, well, look, we've got these people, and they're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant, but they're too technical, or they don't have the sales gene. They're not very magnetic, and their personality is such that they're kind of introverts. And the reality is that those are often some of the highest performing sales professionals. It's the people who are not your stereotypical backslapping salespeople we see in movies, but instead it's the people that have real subject matter expertise, and they now have a process they can follow. Many organizations will then go to those people and say, hey, we want you to play a role in sales. And those people say, no, I'm going to pass. And it's not because they're scared. It's because they're reluctant to participate in sales because their vision of sales is a role that doesn't have integrity, and they value their own reputation. And they say, look, I'm not going to go lie to people, because in many cases, if you ask people what is sales about, oh, it's kind of lying to people. Well, that isn't what it's about. In fact, it should be about representing your client's needs ahead of your own. And if you do that well, you'll be a top performing sales professional. So instead, what we want to focus on is integrity, trust, and results. So first, you want to share with your team that says, look, anything we do is going to be integrity based. If we don't think we can help our client, we're going to tell them that. Our relationships are all about trust. So our clients need to know they can trust us to guide them to the best outcome, the best solution. And of course, we're always going to be committed to results, making sure that we can measure results with our clients before we start a project. That way we know that they're going to be happy with us. They're going to be pleased. Our reputation is going to be intact. Now, instead of telling your people, I want you to go out and sell, what if you said to them, hey, there are a lot of people for whom we can really help solve major problems, and we're not right now. How open would you be to helping more people solve these sorts of problems? And most people would say, oh, I'd be happy to do that. I just don't want to be in sales. So part of it is changing that mindset that says you don't show up as someone who's there to sell something. You show up as someone who is there to solve something. And if you can follow that approach, then once again, we're relying back on that notion of integrity, trust, and results. Then we need to give them a process or a system. And of course, I'm biased toward the same side selling approach, but really any approach where you have a common language, a common process that everyone follows, that's integrity based. We didn't corner the market on integrity based selling. There are other approaches that you can take. Now, our clients tell us that, gee, same side selling gives them a new perspective. It works really well. That's great. My point here is that follow an integrity-based system. It doesn't have to be same-side selling. Though once again, if I put my finger on the scale, I might encourage you to go down that path. So we have a common process. Like in same-side selling, we have a whole methodology. We have the same-side quadrants for how we ask questions during meetings. We have a whole notion of disarming that you're there to sell something, but instead showing up to solve something. We have the client vision pyramid that makes sure that you show up and can clearly differentiate your business from the competitors. Those are the types of tools that are very empowering to people who are professionals. And I've had the great fortune of working with many people who had no experience in sales in the past and are now the top performing producers inside their business. And it's because they've learned this consistent process. We also need to make sure we give them a playbook that says, when these common obstacles come up, here's how to deal with those. You don't have to figure it out on your own. When someone says, well, your stuff sounds great, but these other people are 10% less, how should they handle that? So give them a playbook to deal with that. In the Same Side Selling Academy, we call that the objection clinic. The bottom line is you need to have a process and tools, a playbook to guide them through the most common obstacles they'll face. And then make sure that you have regular, and when I say regular, I mean weekly or monthly at a minimum, coaching and mentoring. So you're giving people feedback, you're role-playing different scenarios, so when things come up, they're comfortable dealing with those situations. So once again, we want to focus back on this notion of integrity, trust, and results. And if you explain that approach to people in your organization who aren't historically in sales, all of a sudden they say, okay, so I'm going to show up to solve instead of sell. You're going to give me a process I go through. You may even give me people in sales who are there to help follow up on the details in between these conversations. And ultimately, we're going to ensure that we can deliver results for our client before we do any deals. That's going to build confidence in your team that their reputation is going to be upheld. And it's actually going to help your clients be more comfortable doing business with you than somebody else. So don't worry if people you think are too technical, they don't have the right gene, they don't have that backslapping mentality. If they're curious and if they have expertise and they're willing to help people solve, then they will be remarkably successful at selling. If there are topics you'd like me to cover, just drop me a note to ian@ianaltman.com. Have an amazing week, and we will see you next week on the Same Side Selling Podcast. So long.